Welcome to God with George Ortega and Joshua Bond. This is Friday, December 18th. Again, the alcohol does stuff. And at 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are continuing our exploration, a few minutes after the last episode, on the relationship between alcohol consumption and the experience of God, among other things. We're not going to limit ourselves to just that, of course, but this it provides a substantial positive influence. So hey, just you like my background? I mean, I just want to this. I didn't intend for that video to be there and all. I just put on the Zoom background once, and I noticed that the only place that it showed up was in this canvas that I have that is yellow behind there. It's like a painting that I haven't started yet. So anyway, it's it's pretty cool.
So
Josh, how you doing?
Hey, doing good. So that's supposed to fill the whole background, right? It's supposed to be one of these virtual backgrounds.
Yeah.
It just picked up on just the canvas. All right. That is crazy. All right. So yeah, doing good, enjoying this experiment. Again, I'm really grateful for you talking me into this. And I wanted to share with the audience real quick because it had a profound emotional impact with me. It was actually what allowed me to do this. George said that he went to I was going to let him explain this, but he's gone.
No, I can hear you, Josh.
Okay. So George, help me fill in the gaps. George, there's a word for rabbis getting together and getting blitzed and talking theology, right? And whatever else they do. That's Fabringen, right? So it's called a Fabringen, right? So when he shared that with me, that there was the spiritual tradition in Judaism, right, that was exploring consciousness in this way with this very drug that I grew up with thinking was from the devil, right? That allowed me to feel a little more empowered, or a little more like, oh, I'm a human being that should get to experience whatever form of consciousness I want, and then try to figure out which one's best for me, right? But you can see where that could be problematic, because that's how, what if the drug made you crazy and you decide you want to have a crazy form of consciousness? So this is a perfect example of why human relationships are so important. Love is so important, right? Because this allows us to have an even expanded view of consciousness, of reality, of God, right? Because now I can have some alcohol, right, and see how it changes me and be stuck in my head. And I can also have some alcohol and talk to George about it and reflect, right? And
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's switch from actually, touting the benefits of alcohol on spirituality to directly expressing these benefits. When I think about God, I think about right and wrong. I think about, God in the Bible wants us to do good. That's what the Bible is about. And that's why, it has felt so wonderful to reconnect with God, as I've been doing over the last year or so. And it's it's the recognition of this being who, for whatever reason, afflicts us in ways that we would prefer not happen, but provides us so many benefits, in so many ways. And that and coming to the understanding that this isn't a belief that I have. This isn't a faith or a hope. This is a logical conclusion. That, in other words, like this isn't kind of like that I'm imagining a being that I'm thanking for all this. This is understanding that this being must categorically exist. That's probably the first fact of existence, that God created existence. So yeah, these are just some thoughts that come about, as one experiences alcohol.
Yeah, George, that's great. Um, mm, a benefit I'm having is being able to feel my feelings about what we're talking about all these subjects, about everything we've talked about on the show, whatever's coming up in the moment as George is talking, or for whatever reason, one thought in my head triggered another one, whatever it is, like being able to feel those. Sometimes I stop on one, I pick one for whatever reason, I focus on it. Could be related to what George is saying and me trying to formulate what to say next. It could be completely unrelated, or it could be like thinking, oh, that's great, but it doesn't relate to what George has said. How do I connect that and think real quick and come up with something so I can share it, right? It's like I can watch all those processes play out, right? And some of them, like some of it's like, well, why is that, the metacognition of why did that come to the surface and why does that feel important to me? And then I can connect to that emotion. And so it makes a lot more sense of, oh, that's a strong emotion that generated a thought that I wanted to share, that came up for some reason while George is talking, but it doesn't seem related to what George is saying, but I want to share it. How do I evaluate it, right? And so I'm struggling to stay with the connection and the emotion, right, that I'm feeling, and realizing uh, that I'm second guessing myself and being, no, let's keep the show going. Let's keep connected, you know. And I'm realizing that I always do this, and normally I'm judging myself too much on everything, right? And it's not letting me be my true connected self, and it's essentially broken. And of course, it's going to be difficult to act perfect immediately after you make one little correction, right? But I just got to accept it's a process of healing, right? And that's one of these aspects that why we're doing this show, right? To develop ways to do this through our understanding of God.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, whoa, that was good. That was good. Um,
I hope so. I can't remember what I said.
no, well, I'm trying to
I
remember.
wouldn't
Yeah, because
expect you to.
yeah, no, it was an excellent thought. It's, oh, well, basically, yes, you were kind of like, we are imperfect. We all have so many flaws. Admit it. Come on. And the benefit, the kindness, the intelligence of this understanding that we don't have a free will is that we get to ascribe these faults to God where they belong. It just like lifts a huge burden off us and helps us see the situation more accurately, so that we can look for causes if we need to, whatever. But even more than that, it's just like, to the extent that we understand that what we do is not up to us, it's up to God. And we are a part of God. We are God. We're just not the part of God who determines what we do. And that's just like such a wonderful state of mind to be in.
Yeah, George. Yeah, and with that state of mind, it's like, because I can do that logically and rationally, right? I've read the books, I've, written my own thoughts about it, and my, Western mind, kind of Cartesian self, says, okay, I think, therefore I am. So I should just be able to be that now. This is logically right. I should be able to be that. I should be more loving because it's not their fault they did this. They didn't have free will. It's not my fault. I did that long time ago. I should stop hating myself every day for it, blaming myself, right? Logically, I get it. But that's not how reality works. That's not how consciousness works. Sometimes just pure logic and rationale helps, but consciousness evolved out of a lot more than that. And one of the things, you know, a lot more than just rational logic is very late. That's only in the last few hundred years, 1,000 years at most in many cultures. Yeah. So love, right? We evolved with a lot of love for each other. That's why we had families. That's why we raised families. That's how consciousness evolved, largely love. Also, this God element, right? And that was always intertwined with love. So, love, emotions, what we're feeling, right? The alcohol is letting me connect to that. And then, like, the egoic mind kicks in. Oh, what's the best way to explain that and sound smart on TV? There's a good insight from your emotions, right? I try to do that, and it just gets more neurotic. And then I watch that process happen, like this true self that I want to be down here, and be connected when I'm explaining my true self, when I'm being my true self, right? But I got all these insecurities, right? I'm judging myself, I'm doubting my ideas. And so as I try to express, it causes me to lose connection with myself and like try to prop up my ideas with smart sounding words or facts from some book I read, right? And as I do that, I'm not saying those things are bad. I should be able to do that and stay emotionally connected, like feeling like this is a good message I'm coming up with. This is what I'm feeling. I want to share it. And if I can share it out of love and with connected to my emotions, my true self, then you will receive it that way. And that's how our minds evolve to receive things the best. So you can see this free will, shame, blame thing that puts up these blocks between us is causing a lot of problems.
I mean, you bring up love, and like when I think of the idea, concept of God, of love, I think that that's God's highest attribute, right? I mean, like the way I define love is wanting the happiness of whom one loves. And so love seems like the highest form of happiness. And I think it's also God's greatest attribute. And we've got a government. It's got like about 16, 17, 18 federal departments, transportation, energy, commerce. Why not have a department of love?
Yeah, George, I love that. And uh, I love that now. I think 10 years ago, would have been so critical of the idea, right? Just because of my view of what government was supposed to be, or reality, or really probably my uncomfortableness with the word love, because the culture and religions I grew up in, most of us grew up in, don't use that word nearly as much as we should, if it's the most important attribute of God, or even close to an important attribute of God, or having a happy, successful life, right? And we've done previous episodes, we did talk a little bit about love and the fact that it's a very semantic reason. For instance, the Greeks had different types of love. They didn't just have one word. So the linguistics of it is part of the reason that we don't talk about it effectively as we should and could, right? We should make love into a science, which is very related to what George is saying. It should be, we should understand what this silly thing is, love, right? Because science kind of scared us because it said, oh, love is just neurochemical. It doesn't really exist like we used to think it exists. Similar to how they said, well, many of your superstitious ideas or your religious ideas don't exist like you thought they existed. That could be the creation of the universe, how it was created, et cetera, et cetera. Primarily, this illusion of free will, right? So this is how it ties in. When we realize we don't have free will, and that that's what God is, and that that's what we are, then we can accept our actions, others' actions when they aren't perfect, and we can love ourselves through that in despite of that, and love each other through that, and develop these relationships that solves those problems instead of rejecting ourselves and each other and blaming it on free will.
Yeah, I mean, it really is about love. You know, it could be what we need. The problems of our time are moral problems, the problem of collective morality of us together as a global population doing what's right, what needs to be done, what should be done. And to the extent we better understand what love is about, what it means, what it requires from us, then we can build that world that we all know is possible. Build that reality, and just have a wonderful time doing so. It's like to as a world decide to just start doing the right thing, start being good, start, I mean, from my perspective, communing with God. But if one doesn't believe in God, then one should simply do great good simply because it is great good. But that's something, yes. The question becomes how do we get this done?
Yeah, George. I just thought of a funny parallel, right? So we've been talking about the benefits of alcohol, but obviously there's detriments, right? So, this parallel that I've read about from actually some reverends and some deeply religious people, that God can be a drug. God can be addictive in wrong ways. Some ideas of God, you might caveat, right? So imagine that's kind of where we're at, right? We're addicted to a version of God that's been attached to religion, theology, and even bad science that says we have a free will, right? And we're addicted to that. So we have to learn to let go of it. So I was just thinking about this little experiment we're doing and how that parallels, like uh, in theogen use, using substances for spiritual experiences or for sitting with your buddies and talking theology, right? There's a harm reduction is a phrase, right? Where you don't just talk about the benefits, you also talk about the risks, the problems that might happen, right? And for me, I've been feeling it off and on during this call, like I'm not talking very good. This doesn't sound very good. So I'm just wasting people's time, right? And then parts of me shifts to, oh, that was really good. That came out really good, right? So you can realize this parallels with these religions that have um, refused to accept the bad sides of their drugs, refused to realize, okay, we have the science that we've been off and we've been causing some problems now, right? So I'm just trying to think of some ways that we can, I don't know, I was feeling insecure, I guess, about uh, doing a God show intoxicated, right? And only talking about the benefits and not talking about the dangers of alcohol. And then it kind of connected the dots for me.
No, I hear you completely. I mean, that's a very valid consideration. In other words, like, with anything, caffeine, sugar, alcohol, whatever it is, it's got to be moderated. It's got to be titrated so it's a benefit. It's got to be titrated like a medicine is. Take any kind of medicine you want to think of. You take too much of it, it's not going to be good. So obviously, yes, you've got to have that consideration in mind.
I want to stop real quick and draw that parallel to religion as a drug, or even some ideas of God as a drug, right? you got to titrate, you got to have moderation, right? And the right form of spirituality, the right ideas about God at the right time, right? So you don't show up for work blitzed, right? So you wouldn't have some version of God that's not going to. I know George is going to stop me. Go ahead, George.
It's it's not now I lost my train of thought.
Good, because
What can I tell you?
I was afraid it was going to be a bad response to where I was getting off. But
No, I mean, it'd probably come back to me. I don't know. Who knows? But let's see. Where is my mind right now? So, like, in other words, like, I can't actually at this moment remember what happened before, but it's obviously had an impact that affects where my mind will go next. And this is really a way of explaining why our wills are not free. What we do right now is caused by what we did before that, and what we did before that, and what we did before that. And so that's a profound understanding. It really is. A quick commercial. I mean, because I'm not, this is like cable TV, so I'm not allowed to advertise things, but, basically, this book that I wrote, Exploring the Illusion of Free Will, second edition, you can like download it for free as a PDF, or if you can buy it for Kindle, from Kindle for $1, but, or the book for, I don't know, $6 or something, but I just had it narrated into an audiobook. And the narrator, Carrie Hampton, did such an amazing job, such a beautiful reader. It got me to understand how good that book is. So I, it's in my audiobook collection. I listen to it.
I've been trying to tell you, George, for weeks, for months, how good it is.
It really is good. So I mean, and then so like I'm just reminding myself, like, the an important consideration with understanding that free will is an illusion is that it's not just the understanding, it's the integrating of the understanding. So, in this case, as I'm listening to the chapters of this audiobook, I'm reminding myself or I'm being reminded of so many important aspects of this understanding that are very, very beneficial to keep in mind.
Yeah, George. Yeah, I want to go back to the love thing and tie that in, because it's the end of the show, and I felt that was kind of the best thing that I came up with. But I think you probably came up with some really great things that I've not mentioned.
No, stay back. Yes, go back to the love. Love is like supremely important. The only thing more supremely important than love is God.
No, yeah. So the most important things that you came up with for me should be the things that you said in response after what I said, right? And one of those was because that would give me insight to myself by bouncing what I'm feeling off of someone else and letting them speak what comes to mind, right? So when I mention love, like it feels, even when I say the word, right? I recognize, looking back through this episode, when I say the word, part of me disconnects, right? And it feels like I'm being fake as soon as it comes out of my mouth, or as soon as I start to actually say it. When before I say it, it's pretty genuine, and I think it's an authentic feeling, right? And part of that is I lose connect with all the other emotions, right? And so I really appreciated how you made that connection there, between love being, I can't remember exactly what you said earlier in the conversation, but it reminded me to check myself that I was doing that again. Maybe that was God speaking through you, right? And to work on that part of myself that can say love out loud and not just, and not lose any part of the rest of myself, which is probably parts of myself that doesn't love myself, right? So I'm preaching love, but yet I'm struggling to really love myself truly, right? And then to learn to be authentic about that process. And I think as I do that, that will help those two parts of myself to accept and become whole, something like that. So I'll just keep talking. Start talking whenever you think of something or when you ever get back. But
I forgot that I turned, kept that other TV on, but it's fine, you know, so like we've got about 2 minutes and 15 seconds left. This has been, I think, an important episode. I think that, you know, alcohol is something that has not been sufficiently appreciated as an agent for spirituality. Love is what perhaps our world most needs to understand. And, you know, if one wants to understand love outside of the context of God, then that's, you know, as long as what love teaches is learned, that, you know, that is a lot. You know, I just like I would feel that for those people they would feel even greater love by understanding the existence of God.
yeah, George, it feels like you're speaking really sincerely to a part of me that has trouble accepting God because I judge God on whatever, or I judge, because the phrase God is connected to a lot of things I don't agree with, that in the way other people use it, or a lot of trauma or shame. But yeah, we're almost out of time. I just want to say one thing that I've developed, that I've learned through these experiences, is when I'm having trouble, when I'm struggling, always go toward love. If there's another person involved, go toward that person, because that's that's, you know, what we generally think of when we think of the term love, another person, right? So this experience has really helped me to do this, and I'm glad we did it. And I really appreciate you, George. I love you, and I love the audience, and I appreciate them listening. And we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks, Dash. Excellent.